Phillip Streible joins us now, Chief Market Strategist at Blue Line Futures. Phillip, great to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. When you look...
Sorry, go ahead, Phillip. You take it away.
I was just going to say, when you look at gold and you look at traditionally, you think it's this hedge against inflation. Where it does well is when you have rising inflation, but you don't have rising treasury yields. You don't have rising interest rates. That's where gold does well. But recently, over the past couple cycles, we've seen this growth going up, and that's the inflation aspect of it. But treasury yields have been anticipating that the Fed is going to tighten, they're going to taper, and everything else. And that's why gold had lagged. Now, I believe that when you come into the start of next year, we've already seen peak inflation on a lot of different commodities out there. The ones that are specifically not weather impacted, like how you mentioned lumber in your last segment, that's going to continue to travel higher. That's a type of inflation that the government can't really control because they can't control the devastation from the weather. However, we're going to see peak inflation, peak growth, and then we're going to see the Fed try and tighten into that growth. And what it'll cause is a deflationary environment. And that's why gold gets its breakout back over 1,800.
That's interesting. So deflation or maybe disinflation. Why that would be good for gold because it would tend to draw down the US dollar?
No, the dollar index, I think people are going to continue to go on it because of the Fed's hawkish stance. You have too many other currencies out there that their central bank, and I believe we have like 20 central banks meeting this week. Mm-hmm. Most of them are quite dovish. They're not going to raise rates. They're continuing to be accommodative. So the only real headwind for gold, for the dollar at the moment, you've got a small bit under the Japanese yen. That's a safety trade from the S&P 500 selling off today. Swiss francs should get just a little bit of a bump up, but most of the currencies out there are going to be.
We're tight for time. What about oil? You reckon speculative money is coming back into crude?
It was, but I think that we're going to peak right around $73 to $75. It seems like, the U.S. government's done a good job releasing from the SPR. And I believe that, you've got OPEC. They're doing their job as well by pumping.
What about silver? Now, you reckon that when you look at gold, silver certainly appears cheap.
Yeah, the ratio is right around 80 to 1. Just back a couple months ago, it was down at 60 to 1. That was more in line with where we should be. Really, 40 to 1 would be much better. So I do think that silver is quite undervalued. The miners have stopped hedging the producers. They've been stopped selling on those forward contracts. And the speculators, once it broke $22, it seemed like they threw in the towel. So when you get an evaporation of participants in the market, I think a new wave will come in once gold starts breaking back out to the upside and silver really takes a nice leap.
That's interesting. I suppose it's a vastly smaller market, silver. So can it move? Is it more volatile? Can you remind me?
Absolutely, it is. It is. It moves twice as much as gold generally.
Finally, corn. Now, you do see room for a breakout in corn because I thought America, though, had posted a pretty big crop. What would help lift corn?
We did, but the demand is there from China. The South American crop is the one that we're watching. If there's any kind of dryness, you've seen ethanol, those margins have been quite high. So corn has had a good underlying bid. Chart patterns quite supportive on corn back to the upside. And it's another market that, again, they politicize the inflation, but they don't recognize, politicians don't recognize that adverse weather conditions are what drives some of these other input costs. Same thing with coffee. That crop was half wiped out down in Brazil. Prices are going to be elevated.